All right, Friday night. So we are live and ready to go for what we call our rough draft heading into Sunday. As you can see, my man Chris is not with us, but that's all right because replaced by my good friend, Mr. Keith Fleming. How we doing, Keith?
Man, doing fantastic. A little nervous about tomorrow's UGA game, but excited.
Yeah, it's that time of the year. So, every game is a playoff game with the current format, but yeah, it'll be interesting. Michigan's got a cakewalk tomorrow. Hopefully that doesn't come back to bite me in the ass. But
I don't think you got anything to worry about.
24-point favorite. They kick a field goal in the first drive and the game's over. So Iowa's probably not going to score.
That's how we felt about TCU last year. I feel pretty good.
Let's move on. Let's move on, Keith. That hurts. That hurts. Let's talk about quarterbacks here. For me, it's going to be real simple. It's Brock Purdy and it's Russell Wilson. With Purdy, I've been attacking the Philadelphia pass funnel all year. They rank 30th in schedule adjusted fantasy points to QBs, 31st to wide receivers, and first to running backs. So they are, the ultimate pass funnel. That's a term that will get thrown around a little bit, but this is the epitome of what a pass funnel looks like. And Purdy's been a pretty popular cash target throughout the year, basically. And I just personally have never gotten to him. I think this is the week that's going to change for me. And then Russell Wilson, he's been solid. Not spectacular, but that's fine for cash. Only got one game under 2.5x on the season. Gets a really good matchup here against Houston, 31st in schedule adjusted fantasy points to QBs. And, those two just really stand out so far above the rest. And, I'm leaning towards Purdy. That's kind of the way that, my lineups have been working themselves out. I totally get Russell Wilson if that's the route you want to go. They're so similar in price, at least on DK, that you really can get to either one of them. It's kind of just a preference thing. What do you think, Chris? Jesus, look at me. What do you think, Keith?
For cash games, completely agree. Me and Joe, no surprise, had Russell Wilson and Brock Purdy of two of the three guys that we mentioned last night. What I love about Wilson is just he's Russell Bustle again, like 30 yards or more in 5 of 7 games. That's just free points. I'll take it all day, and it's also in a dome, which is always good. Because I'm filling in for Chris, let's have some fun, do a little MME.
Mm-hmm.
Bryce Young's the first guy, 4,900. This is all about Adam Thielen, who I love this week. The Bucks 6th in fantasy points allowed to wide receivers from the slot. Last week, Josh Downs, who was number 1 in slots or snaps from the slot, saw 13 targets. I think Thielen's going to get peppered. All of Bryce's best games, no coincidence, have been good Thielen games. So I do like the Young, if you're going to do that, stack them with Thielen, or you can stack them with Mingo, or you can stack them with both, again, for an MME. The other guy, and don't laugh, Joe Flacco, 4,600. Elijah Moore, I get it.
$100 for every year he's old?
I get it, but if you go back and look with the Jets last year, they were terrible. Don't get me wrong, but he had some pretty good games with guys like Corey Davis and Garrett Wilson. And I do like Njoku has been so good recently. Elijah Moore averages 1.25 points per route run, fantasy points with Joe Flacco. Everybody else for his career, it's 0.25. And then I think it also brings a little upside to Cooper because, again, we know one thing Flacco will do is he'll throw it down the field, which is going to give Cooper more of a chance to make big plays. Again, this is just for MME, and it just gives you so much flexibility because no matter which one of those guys you end up stacking with them, which you can do any of them, you're going to have so much cash for the rest of your lineup and go a million different directions.
Yeah, I think that if anything, Njoku might get the biggest bump from Flacco just because I disagree with you. I think Flacco is not going to chuck the ball down the field. He's going to keep it. He's going to keep it tight to the line of scrimmage. So I think that probably bodes well for Elijah Moore and especially David Njoku. I don't think that it's going to bode well for Amari Cooper, but that's why we play the games, right? So we'll see what happens. I don't hate the Joe Flacco call. Obviously, that's an MME play. You can't do that in cash. That's suicide. But I always say in MME, pretty much anything's possible as long as your lineup tells a story. You can make it work, and you can definitely do that with Flacco. And you're going to be unique, and there's going to be some chalk on this slate. So you could fill that with chalk.
A lot of chalk, yeah.
Yeah. So it's interesting, something to think about for sure. Running backs. For me, this is shaping up to be a pretty easy week. The lineup that I've been looking at, because I start everything on Tuesday. I get a really early head start. I post a really early pool in our Discord. I update it Wednesday, update it Thursday, Friday, Saturday, update it every day. My lineup has pretty much been the same all week. Now, my pool will adjust a little bit, but, the guys that I'm finding into my lineup have not really changed. And it starts right with Zach Moss. Soon as Taylor got ruled out, Moss became just an instant cash lock for me. Starting running back that's going to get his volume at that price. Yeah, I just don't know how you can not play him in cash. That's why I always suggest play single entry cash tournaments with the largest, amount of entries possible. Because in cash, really all you're trying to do is you're trying to allow other people to make mistakes. So the more people that are, available to make a mistake, the better. So let other people try to get cute and not play Zach Moss. Tennessee 20th schedule adjusted fantasy points to running backs. In week 5, Moss got the start. There's no Jonathan Taylor. Yeah. 23 carries, 165 yards, 2 touchdowns, and he even snuck in 2 catches for 30 yards. 36.5 point day on DK. Now, I don't think we get a repeat of that necessarily, but at his price, if he gets us 15 points, it's a smash play. So he just needs to get a little bit of that. And Surf, we got the goods for you here, my man. Look at me. We got the goods for you here. Yeah, I say that, and I just out of habit, and half the time I'm self-aware enough to catch it and go, what are you doing? And sometimes I'm not. But Rachaad White as well. He's the guy that's, on our thumbnail here. Nice run, 6 straight games over 2.5x. 5 of those games he's gone over my magical 3x. Nice matchup here against Carolina. Similar to Philadelphia here, another run funnel. 27th in schedule adjusted fantasy points to running backs here. 3rd against quarterbacks, 2nd against receivers. So not quite as extreme as Philadelphia, but pretty darn close, man. The price, the situation, all of that too good to pass up. I got him locked in. He's been locked in since Tuesday. Reminder, Stevenson, 2.5x, 5 of the last 6 games. He said 20 carries and 5 targets each of the last 2. Chargers are a great matchup, for all positions. Running backs are 25th schedule adjusted fantasy points. Not a whole lot going on here in this offense. Sounds like Bailey Zappi's going to be starting. I don't see a reason for his volume and production to suddenly just disappear.
He actually checks down even more to the backs
than
Mac Jones did. So I love Stevenson too.
Yeah, and Stevenson, the amount of targets that he's been getting, it's sneaky. It's sneaky good. I gave the stat last week. I think he was, I don't remember exactly what it was, but he was right on par over the last 6 weeks with CMC and Alvin. It wasn't Kamara. It was CMC and somebody. Either way, the point is Stevenson gets a lot more targets than what you think he does. Jonte Williams, again, seen real nice volume over the past 5 games, at least 19 touches in 4 of those. Efficiency hasn't been all that great, but the price is good considering that volume. Houston 21st schedule adjusted fantasy points to running backs. If you don't end up playing Russ, this is a way to get a piece there. And then you'll like this one, Bijan Robinson. I don't personally think I get to him this week. But that doesn't mean that you can't play him in cash. 22 touches, 24 touches each of the last 2 weeks. Seems like Atlanta finally, deciding to just let this guy eat a little bit. Been productive with the touches, 3 touchdowns, 186 yards rushing, 4 catches for 43 yards here over those 2 weeks. Jets are a bit of a run funnel here as well. Again, not as extreme as, that Philadelphia example, but 26 in schedule adjusted fantasy points to running backs, and they are 2nd against quarterbacks, 1st against wide receivers. So they're a team that, you're going to end up having to run on to be successful, Keith.
Yeah, I completely co-sign every one of those picks. Love Rachaad White. Me and Joe talked about the other night because let's say they lead the game the entire time. He's getting all the rush attempts. It just means they'll get a bunch of rush attempts. Say Bryce Young ends up having a good game. Like I said, do they get done or get down? They start passing. Rachaad White's very heavily involved in the passing game. So either way, it's a good script for White, and you just got to love those matchups. Just some guys that you didn't mention. Two starting at a little bit more expensive level. I don't think they're going to be high owned because of just the matchups, but really Kamara 80.
So much value, available. So
Kamara 8,200. If Olave's out, especially because now you're talking about basically every Saints number one receiver is out now. Thomas obviously knows that. Rashid's already been ruled out. Olave's the only one that's questionable to play. We've seen Kamara have 12, 14 target games already this season. I could see him having God knows how many receptions.
Wide receiver 1 and RB1 against a pretty bad defense as of late in Detroit. So that's a fantastic call.
The next one, Kieran Williams, 7,200. Again, a guy that's just huge volume. The Browns get to the quarterback. Stafford typically looks to tight end and the running back a lot more when he's pressured. So I just think it's one of those deals that Williams has been so good this year. And the Browns, they're not quite as good against the run as people think.
Fifth in schedule, Justin. Yeah.
Okay, so maybe they are better than I thought.
Now, again, you can throw some stuff out the window to some extent whenever you throw Joe Flacco in there. We don't know what that Cleveland offense is going to look like, and that does affect the defense, I think, more than what people think. But that is a difficult matchup, and that could be a low-scoring game. That's my concern.
That's a good point. The other guy that you did not mention that I really like this week, and you can take either one of them, but I like Jaylen Warren more at 50. I think he's 5,400 this week.
They're almost identical plays as far as projection, price,
right?
opportunity.
Harris is 5,200. The only difference, and this is the main reason why I like Warren slightly more against a very, very bad run defense in Arizona, is the fact that he's involved in the passing game. And I mean, Harris just basically has not. So I do like that upside. He's only $200 more. And I mean, Harris had 2 20-yard runs. That was probably the amount of 20-yard runs he's had all year. I think Warren's a little bit more likely to bust a big one. And I think that Pittsburgh, their offense is going to get going. Canada was awful. It's not a coincidence they gained 400 yards in the last game before Canada was hired as OC, and they gained 400 yards in the first game since he's been let go. So, but again, really on Moss, even in MMEs, I still think Moss is just such a great value at 4,600.
Yeah, and it's so hard not to play him. That's as close to a free square as we really get in the course of a season. He's so productive. He's got all of that volume. Should be coming right back to him this week. It's hard not to just embrace that chalk. And in all formats.
And again, I love the Stevenson play. Chargers are just awful versus the running backs. And again, it is Zappy much more likely to check down and target than Mac Jones, which again, Stevenson seeing like 5.56 targets per game his last 5. I think
it's a lot more than people think. Yeah.
Yep. So those are kind of the backs I'm looking at for MME.
Yeah, for sure. Wide receivers, it starts for me with Tyreek Hill, and I feel like maybe outside of the first week, I can't remember that far back, but every week that he's on the main slate, I have basically played Tyreek Hill, best wide receiver in the league to this point, and he's going up against Washington, who is dead last in the schedule adjusted fantasy points to receivers this year. Just like Zach Moss, I have locked him in. This guy, he could get 600 yards receiving this week. The only thing that's going to stop him probably is either A, an injury, which we can't predict, or B, they get up 35-0, in the second quarter and, something crazy like that. But
usually, though, if they do, that means he's already got 150 yards and a touchdown.
That's exactly what I was going to say is I think one mistake that people make is they go, and I know it's ridiculous to say 35-0 in the second quarter, but let's say it's 35-3 early in the fourth quarter, right? And, Tyreek ends up sitting out most of the fourth quarter. Right? People will look at that and go, well, geez, I don't know, three quarters of Tyreek Hill or a full game of Amon St. Brown. Give me a full game of Amon. But like you said, that's where people, I think, make the mistake, and they don't realize if they've put up all those points to be able to sit Tyreek, he's probably been a part of that. And he can, he's gotten a game's worth of, stats in that period of time. But anyways, we're trying to keep it here nice and short. We're trying to prove to Chris that we can do this show in about 30 minutes. So, and I'm over here messing it up. Terry McLaurin, opposite side of the field. Great matchup against Miami. They're 30th in schedule adjusted fantasy points to receiver. I could see a lot of points in this game. I mean, I'm not saying it's going to be, a 70-point game, but it sure as hell could be, man. Volume's been there. He's seen at least 7 targets in each of the last 7 games. I don't force correlation in cash, but McLaurin's been fitting into my lineups naturally. So that correlation with Hill is certainly nice. Cortland Sutton stands out as well. Russell Wilson's a solid play. Brings along Sutton with him. He's cheap. Gone over 2.5x in 4 of the last 6 games. Houston 19th in schedule adjusted points to receivers. If you do end up playing Russ, Sutton, if he naturally fits into your lineup, again, provides you with that nice correlation that, we don't force, but when it happens, it's nice. You got Michael Pittman, Josh Downs. I think you can play either one of them with Zach Moss. I wouldn't, triple stack that offense by any stretch. But I think you could pick one if you wanted to. Volume's been absolutely ridiculous for Pittman. 12 targets, 2 of the last 3 games, 2.5x in 5 of the last 6. Downs a little bit more affordable, but, with those savings comes risk. At 13 targets last week, I think he's fully back to health now. Tennessee, 23rd schedule adjusted fantasy points to receivers. Just like I talk about, Hill all the time, when Amon St. Brown's on the slate, it's the same thing. Matchup isn't great. New Orleans 10th schedule adjusted points to wide receivers. But with a guy like this, to me, matchup really doesn't matter. Elite cash option every single time he's in play because his volume is always there and he's always consistent. And that's what we look for in cash, volume and consistency. And you get that with Amon St. Brown without question. Elijah Moore, we kind of talked about him a little bit earlier. I think this is one of your 2 potential punt options, this week. We don't really know what we're going to get from him with Flacco. So we can kind of throw all the numbers out the window with him as far as, like what he's done recently. But the matchup isn't great. LA 9th schedule adjusted fantasy points to wide receivers. We go Nico Collins, Tank Dell here in Houston. Again, 2 guys have been in play, for the most part here. Obviously, again, you can't play them together unless you're playing, Stroud, I guess. I don't know that I'm going to get to either one of these guys, but I got to bring them up because they're in play every single week. Tough here with the matchup with Denver, 4th schedule adjusted fantasy points to receivers. I don't think I'm going to get to these guys, but, if somebody wants to go there, I get it. And then final punt play, A.T. Perry. Who the fuck is A.T. Perry is what a lot of people are saying, but that's okay. All you need to know is that he's super cheap. And the way that the injuries are looking for the pass catchers in New Orleans, this guy could, I'm not saying he will, but he could lead the team in targets. If Olave is out especially, who do they have?
I like him more actually with Olave because I think then the defense tries to take Olave away.
I don't know. I think for a punt, I want volume, more guaranteed the better. I would rather Olave was out. For MME,
don't worry though then about like Kamara and Hill.
Well, yeah, A.T. Perry's close to a nobody. You're playing him because he's super cheap and he all of a sudden just has this opportunity to probably be the wide receiver 1, at least on paper. That doesn't mean he's going to lead the team in targets. They could go Juwan Johnson. They could go Kamara. They probably throw Taysom Hill out there a whole lot. But at that price, you don't need a whole lot for him. Try passing. Defense, 25th schedule adjusted fantasy points to wide receivers. Like you said, Shaheed's out. Olave to be determined. I think Olave probably plays, which to me makes, Perry and MME only play, but I have to mention him here, Keith.
I like it. All right. I'm just going to basically go over guys that are cheap with one exception. I really like DeAndre Hopkins this week, 6,100. Colts give up the most targets in the NFL to number 1 wide receivers at over 10 per game. DeAndre Hopkins in their first game, 11 targets, 8 receptions. I think he's a really sneaky play at 6,100, whether it be cash or MME.
Yeah.
All right, and then I got a crap load of cheap ones. Let's start with my boy Drake London, 5K. Again, you're going to see that second-rate defense, and that's true, but he actually has a favorable matchup per PFF. And then on top of that, he's seen at least 7 targets in 6 of his last 7 games with Desmond Ridder. So he is getting a huge target volume. Last week, 35% target rate, 49% of the air yards. That's actually been pretty consistent with what he's been seeing the last couple of full Ridder starts. Curtis Samuel, 4,100 for Washington. Completely agree with you that I think the Dolphins-Commanders game could get insane. I mean, we're talking about Commanders throw it 44 plus times a game. It's insane.
Yeah.
Samuel.
45, 35 kind of game.
Have you seen the graph, right? Where their logo is so far out of the picture. It's crazy. But Samuel, believe it or not, when the 4 guys play together, Logan Thomas, McLaurin, Samuel, Dotson, he averages the most PPR points. Now, I understand some of that's obviously from last week, but he averages just over 11 points. None of the other guys average.
Look who came into the comments.
It's Chris.
Chris, you're wasting our time. We're trying to keep it under 35. So we're moving on.
For that same reason, you could also talk me into Jahan Dotson. And again, I like the Terry McLaurin play as well. My big boy, though, is Greg Dortch, 3,700. We have an official pattern. If Michael Wilson's out, it looks like he's going to be. Last 2 weeks, he played 70% of the snaps. In those games, 17 targets, 9 receptions, back-to-back double-digit games. Last year, he had 6 games with 70% snaps. He saw 56 targets in those games. So if you take the 8 games the last 2 seasons, 7 of them started by Kyler Murray, Dortch is averaging 8 targets, 6.5 receptions, and just under 15 points per game. He's $3,700. And again, the Steelers, a good defense, not a great one. Porter's probably going to shadow Brown. I like Dortch even more for that reason. You mentioned Perry, who was one of the guys I was going to talk about, but I do want to talk about Mingo, 3,300 for the Panthers. With the change, I got to believe they're going to start getting more involved with this guy. He is their most talented receiver. He's obviously the one they spent capital on. And again, Frank Reich's gone. Some things are going to change. They ran 11 personnel, the most in the NFL. They were 31st in motion. Something's got to change. That's why Frank Reich got fired. If you're just running out the same lineup over and over and over again with no disparity, of course defenses are going to zone in on you. So I think that's
with a rookie quarterback.
With a rookie QB, exactly. So I like that one. 2 guys for the Chargers, either Quentin Johnson, these are MME, either Quentin Johnson or Joey Guyton. This is all just about Bill Belichick. We know, what does he always do? He tries to take away your number 1 guy. I don't know if the Patriots can stop Keenan Allen, but they're going to try to. That's going to leave the other receivers with the potential to feast against a secondary that's just really banged up and honestly not very good anymore. And then 2, again, big-time MME plays, but Alec Pierce, 3,300 for the Colts.
Sure.
Tennessee is a team that number 1 in the NFL versus slot receiver for fantasy points and in yards allowed. They are so good against slot receivers. Why Adam Thielen had a terrible game last week. They shut them down. Very bad to receivers on the outside. That's why I like Michael Pittman this week. But I also think Alec Pierce is a guy. He's a big play guy. Titans have been known to give up some big plays on the outside. He's 3,300, still seeing a 15% target rate. And if Downs is, covered a little bit more, I just think obviously Pittman's going to see the biggest increase in that, but it's also going to maybe Pierce gets a few extra targets. He's caught 3+ receptions in 4 of 6 and seen 5 or more targets in 3 of the last 6.
Yeah, for an MME play, I mean, that's the kind of stuff, those are your kind of leverage, your unique and different plays. Other people are playing Downs and you're playing Pierce. I absolutely love it.
And then the one last
great stats to back it up too.
Appreciate it. And then the last one, again, this is risky, and you need to check because he's got a hamstring issue. But Marvin Mims for the Denver Broncos, 3,300. Houston has allowed the most PPR points per target to perimeter wide receivers per fantasy points data. They utilize too high zone defense at the 4th highest rate in the NFL, 58.2%. Mims among 119 receivers who qualify, 20th in yards per route, 9th in yards after the catch, 9th in receptions, 28th in fantasy points per route run. Again, this is a dart, but I'm saying I like Russell Wilson just like you.
Yeah.
Mims is only seeing 2-3 targets. I get it. I understand he hadn't had a big game.
Not even. Well, I mean,
no, he has. He
two.
saw 3 targets 2 weeks in a row. He has, and he actually had a rush attempt last week too. But that's all he's seen is 2-3 targets. But again, targets, weeks 2 and 3, he had 15 points or games of 15 and 22 points on 2 and 3 targets. So if there is a defense that he could see 2-3 targets and have that monster game with the way he is against, again, this too high that they run the 4th highest rate in the NFL, it's this one. But those are the kind of, MME, just, throwing shit at the wall plays at wide receiver.
I tell you what, the way I would like to play Mims would be to double him with Wilson. Play Sutton.
Oh no, for sure, yeah.
Play Sutton, play Mims. I don't like Mims. I get it, but I don't like him as a one-off. I like him as a double stacking partner.
And again, I even in MME or cash, I would highly recommend Dortch for $400 more because it's an 8-game sample. 8-game sample at almost 9 targets per. Him and Murray have a connection. Murray played 7 of 8 of those games.
No, you're so right. I don't remember what it was a couple of weeks ago when we did this, but you got me onto something that I hadn't considered, and you just did the same thing with Dortch. So moving on to tight ends, same guy that I was in love with last week, and he was my silly strings pick, David Njoku. I'm not a huge fan of the unknown of Joe Flacco. That's really the only thing that has stopped me from
volume's king, Dave Eddie.
I know, but we don't know what he's going to get with Flacco.
If you're saying though he's going to dump down, that's good for him, right?
I know, but I like actual tangible data.
I got
and there is, when you have a Flacco coming in, you can throw everything right out the window, unfortunately. But I'm still almost surely playing him. Like you said, volume has been just ridiculous. At least 6 targets each of the last 6 games. It's hit 3x in each one of those. Price, volume, fantastic matchup. Rams, dead last. Schedule adjusted fantasy points to tight end. So it's hard not to play him. Cade Otton catches my attention, though. Volume there is not world-changing, but the production, especially for that price, has been really good. It's gone over 2.5x, 7 out of 10 games, 5 of the last 6. Isn't quite a punt option, but he's real close. He's cheap. And then Juwan Johnson, exactly the same reason, we're talking about A.T. Perry, the injuries to this New Orleans passing game. I don't think I need to get too much into it here. It makes for a risky play, but the payoff, could be really good. I don't hate him for cash. I don't hate him for MME. I mean, I don't love him anywhere, but I think he's a unique play. And then I just want to talk about Trey McBride. He's a guy that week in, week out has been in this pool, especially since, Ertz was gone. I don't think I can do it this week. I'm really worried about that groin. I don't like when somebody gets an injury in the middle of the week. That usually doesn't work out very well. So McBride's a guy I just want to mention, because if I don't, people are going to say, well, hey, what about Trey McBride? I just want to bring him up and say I can't do it this week.
I like those, especially, again, Njoku. I'm going to have him probably in a lot of lineups. Double-digit points, 6 straight, 56 targets in that stretch. It's outrageous. And the great part about it, there's been 3 freaking different quarterbacks, so it seems like no matter who it is, they go to him. So
about to be 4.
I've got 3 guys that are a little bit lower than Njoku that I feel good about. The first one, again, let's get back to that Washington-Miami game. Logan Thomas. Yep, 3,600. Dolphins 22nd versus tight ends. Dolphins get up. What are they? I mean, what's Howell going to do? He's going to sling it. Thomas obviously has a chance to be that guy. But the 2 guys I really like. The first one, Brevin Jordan, $2,500. No Dalton Schultz. Broncos 32nd versus opposing tight ends. It would not shock me at all if Jordan scores a touchdown. And again, 2,500. I mean, come on, you can't beat that. But my favorite play, honestly, because the one great thing about watching your sorry ass team week after week after week is what you're good at and what you're bad at. My Atlanta Falcons cannot fucking cover tight ends. It drives me crazy. Hayden Hurst, week 1, scored 15 points. He was tight end 1. He hasn't scored more than 7 points in a game since. Cade Otton, week 9, 24 points, was tight end 2. He hasn't scored more than 10.5 points in any other game. Tyler Conklin is somebody who's seeing volume. And again, by the way, last week we were reminded that Johnson, Taysom Hill, combined for 4 receptions, 100 yards. But again, he was the 3rd most targeted player last week, only behind Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall. That has kind of consistently been it. Last 4 games, 21 targets, 19 receptions. And my Falcons, they cannot cover tight ends at 3,000. All we're talking right, 9-12 points. I think there's a very good chance he gets that. I think there's a great chance he gets 15 to 18 points. I'm telling you,
Tim Boyle
cannot cover tight ends.
Tim Boyle may not give 10 points to his entire wide receiving, pass catching crew. So to expect one guy to get that is tough. Now, from an MME perspective, yes, that
he scored 7-3 with them last week versus. Oof. I'm just saying.
I know. I want to get to Leo's question here. He asks, "How come you don't do anything for FanDuel GPPs?" And that's just not true, Leo. I'm sitting here talking from a cash game perspective, and that goes between both sites. I mean, I'm a little more focused on DraftKings, but it definitely relates to FanDuel. Usually, Chris is here giving MME plays. Keith is here in his place, and
I do DK. I like that. I like the PPR. It's easier for me.
Yeah, the game theory though still tracks. Yeah. Your stats against this team is good against slots, so not it all relates. So it may be a little more DraftKings focused, no question, but it definitely relates to FanDuel. Let's talk defenses here real quick. I don't have an amazing read. For cash, I really think it's going to be the Patriots. They're just so cheap. They've been pretty good. Like you said, they are, Bill Belichick is just good at taking away somebody. And the Chargers offense is so condensed right now that if they can take away Keenan Allen, there's not a whole lot going on there. So there is the potential that Patriots defense actually could do well. And it's mostly a price thing. My favorite by a mile, but it's going to be everyone's favorite, is your Atlanta. Tim Boyle is got to be the worst starting quarterback this week by a lot. They're going to probably cause some havoc. They've got as good of a chance of anybody scoring a touchdown. They're just going to be so chalky that I think for MME purposes, I avoid them simply for that one particular reason. I always tell Chris all the time, if I'm playing a defense in cash or considering them in cash, that probably means they are wiped out of my player pool for MME, because there's nothing worse than playing a chalky defense in MME. That's a spot to get unique. Also like the Jets, also like the Broncos. I think you could, do any of those 4 in cash. Just depends on what you need. I don't mind the Jets or Broncos so much for MME. I'm pretty sure I'm playing the Patriots. If I had the cash, I would be thrilled to play the Atlanta, but I just don't see it happening.
Yeah, obviously the Falcons, Jets. I feel like you can almost pick one because again, I said I like Bijan, but it's Arthur Smith. Tyler Algier could end up getting 30 carries. Who knows what's going to happen? I do kind of think the Colts are interesting. They're a defense that scored a crap ton of points the last 3 weeks, and no coincidence. Rookie Mac Jones, bad QBs. They're beating up on them. Will Levis, a rookie. Those last 3 games, they've scored, 53 points, 11, 16, 26. So that's an interesting one for me. Your Broncos is really the play that I keep coming back to. 6 sacks their last 2, 8 forced fumbles in their last 3 games.
That's probably not repeatable, just to be fair.
I think I'm
just saying that's an extremely high number.
I'm not doubting that, but I'm saying that it shows they're ball hawks. That doesn't just happen by coincidence. 82 points over the last 6 games. And if you look at the schedule, they played KC, Green Bay, Buffalo, Minnesota. So it's not been this cupcake schedule, and they've given up 82 points over the last 6 games. Denver's deep may be for real now after whatever happened earlier in the year. I don't know what the hell was going on. And then, you could again talk me into the other side of that with Tennessee versus Indy. We know how Minshew can sometimes be if Moss ends up not getting it going. I could end up seeing, potentially Tennessee at home. They've had a couple of good games, including against Atlanta, which is another offense that kind of like with Gardner Minshew, like it's okay, but it's not great. So, but the ones I'm really looking at is Denver. I do like your Pats play. And then again, the one that I'm trying to have enough money in, but obviously if it doesn't work out, is Indy.
Yeah. I want to get to this question here real quick. Ron, good man here in a private Discord all the time. Him and I are mopping up in NBA DFS, by the way. He asked, who would be my MME quarterback this week? I have a terrible answer for you, but it's going to be a good answer for you, a bad answer for everyone else, Ron. I don't know right now. I have been so focused on cash. I've been so focused on NBA. I don't usually run my MME stuff until Saturday night-ish and start to get a feel for that. I'm so locked in on cash. But the good news for you, Ron, is I will talk to you about it in Discord once I run it, and I will kind of give you it usually ends up being 2, 3, maybe 4 at the most quarterbacks. So when I do find out, Ron, you will definitely be the first to know, which is all the more reason, if anyone wants to sign up, fantasy6pack.net/plans, check it out is about all I can really say. The private Discord to me is worth its weight in gold. I mean, you can just ask Ron, how much money we've won in NBA DFS this year, and the added information is only on that, Discord. So it is nowhere else. The link for the Discord
should be in the YouTube, I think.
Well, you will. Right? You need to sign up. It's
no. I'm saying I think it has the link to sign up in the YouTube.
Description. The YouTube will have it. There are some free channels, but he said he is a member of Fantasy Six Pack. Go ahead, and I'm trying to think the best way to do it. Hopefully you follow me on Twitter. If so, go ahead, send me a DM on Twitter, and I will get that information to you. Because if you're an All Access member and you're not in that Discord, man, you're really missing out. But that's going to do it for us. Keith, I really appreciate the very close to last minute, addition here. Absolutely love doing the show with you. We're going to be a little bit over the time that we wanted to, but still well underneath the usual here. So greatly appreciate it. You want to tell anyone about what you got going on real quick?
Just follow my Twitter. You can find everything you need there. And when Scotty Scheffler wins this tournament on Sunday, and I sent a tweet when he was 14-1 yesterday through 5 holes.
Text me.
Literally, I texted out and said, everybody, hey, bet this right now live. He's already back leading. Me. He's going to run away with it. I made a bet on it. I hope other people did. Be sure to follow me at Keith Fleming for stuff like that.
You got to text me your golf picks in. But
I will.
Yeah, I'll throw $5 on it, But all right, this will do it for our Friday show. Where the money's really made is Sunday. We go on at noon. Should be Chris and I. That's our the final essay that we're turning in. That's all the information that we're going to possibly get for the week. We give you our final thoughts and the most actionable information. So for my great friend here, Mr. Keith Fleming, an unfortunate Georgia Bulldog fan, I appreciate you tuning in, and at least I will see you on Sunday.
Go Dogs.
Oh, boy.